Before we begin, take a slow breath and feel a space around you. Fear softens when you stop running from it and simply see it. This is your moment to look gently within, to listen to your inner truth, and to rediscover the strength that silence brings. Welcome to this journey of understanding. Fear has been sitting inside you for years, quietly shaping your decisions, guiding your choices, and influencing your life far more than you ever realized. It appears in moments when you want to speak your truth but stay silent. It appears when you want to take a step forward but your legs refuse to move. Fear hides behind hesitation, behind doubt, behind the tightness in your chest that arrives without warning. And yet, for most of your life, you have tried to avoid it instead of understand it. Today, you will not run, you will not hide, you will not fight. You will simply look at fear with gentle awareness, the way you would look at a trembling child. Because fear is not a monster, it is a message. It is a signal from the deepest part of your consciousness saying, there is something here you must see. When you feel fear rising inside you, notice what happens. Your breath becomes shallow. Your mind begins to imagine things that do not exist. Your body tightens as if preparing for danger. But the danger is not real. The danger is only the story your mind creates. And your body, innocent and loyal, reacts to the story as if it were truth. Fear is rarely about the present moment. Fear is almost always a memory or an imagination. It comes from the past or the future. The present moment is too silent for fear. Right here, right now, nothing is attacking you. Nothing is threatening you. You are safe. But the mind keeps whispering old stories, old disappointments, old wounds, old failures. These whispers become fear. If you look deeply, you will see that fear is simply the echo of the past trying to protect you. Fear wants to avoid pain, avoid loss, avoid humiliation, avoid rejection. Fear thinks its job is to keep you small so nothing can hurt you again. But in doing so, it also keeps you from living, from growing, from becoming who you truly are. Fear protects the body, but it limits the consciousness. Fear says, stay where you are. Awareness says, see where you are. Freedom says, you can go beyond this. The moment you bring awareness into fear, something begins to change. Awareness does not push fear away. Awareness does not argue with fear. Awareness simply watches. And in that watching, fear begins to lose its power. Fear survives in darkness. It dissolves in light. When you close your eyes and feel fear honestly, without judging it, you will notice that it is just energy, a movement in the chest, a tightening in the stomach, a vibration in the hands. This energy is not harmful. This energy is not dangerous. It is simply a wave rising in the ocean of your being. If you do not resist the wave, it passes on its own. The mind says, fear is bad. Awareness says, fear is a sensation. The mind says, run away. Awareness says, stay and look. The mind says, you cannot handle this. Awareness says, you are larger than this. Fear becomes dangerous only when you believe its story. The story is always the same. Something terrible will happen. But has anything terrible ever happened inside your mind that became real? Your mind creates thousands of fears and only a few ever come true. Yet you suffer all thousand as if they are real. Understanding this is liberation. Fear survives through imagination. Fear grows in secrecy. Fear disappears when you meet it directly. When you meet fear with awareness, it becomes smaller. When you avoid it, it becomes stronger. When you suppress it, it becomes darker. When you run from it, it follows you. When you observe it, it fades. Awareness is the antidote to fear. There will come a day when you will look at fear and smile, because you will understand what it truly is. Fear is simply your system trying to protect you from the unknown. But the unknown is where life grows. The unknown is where transformation happens. The unknown is where your highest potential lives. You cannot awaken if you are trying to be safe all the time. Life expands when you move beyond fear, not when you hide behind it. Fear says, "What if you fail?" Awareness says, "What if you grow?" Fear says, "What if people judge you?" Awareness says, "What if you finally become yourself?" Fear says, "What if you get hurt?" Awareness says, "What if you heal slowly, gently?" Fear begins to lose its voice. Its grip becomes weaker. Its shadow becomes lighter. Because now you are seeing with clarity, not with imagination. You are acting from awareness, not from habit. You are moving from understanding, not from panic. In truth, fear is only a doorway. On one side of the doorway is the life, the patterns you repeat, the comfort that cages you. On the other side is freedom, courage, expansion, awakening. The bridge between the two is awareness. Every time you look at fear without running, you take one step across that bridge, and one day, without realizing it, you will reach the other side. You will look back and wonder how fear ever had such control over you. You will not feel ashamed. You will feel grateful, because fear brought you here. Fear pushed you inward. Fear made you seek this awareness. Fear was not your enemy. Fear was your teacher. Fear was the flame that led you to the light. This is the beginning of freedom. Fear begins to loosen its grip the moment you stop trying to escape it. The act of escaping gives fear more strength, more shape, more presence. But when you sit still and observe it, fear becomes just another movement in your inner world. You start to recognize that the fear you felt for years was never as big as the imagination surrounding it. What frightened you was not the fear itself, but the story you attached to it. The stories were inherited. They came from society, from family, from childhood moments you barely remember, from failures that shaped your beliefs. You were taught to treat fear as a sign of weakness, but in truth, fear is only a sign of sensitivity. Sensitive people feel fear more deeply because they are more aware of life. Fear simply means you are alive, alert, open. Without fear, human beings would never evolve. Fear sharpens awareness. Fear wakes you up. Fear asks you to pay attention. When you begin to understand fear in this way, you stop seeing it as a problem. You start to see it as a guide. You start to ask a different question. What is fear trying to show me? And the moment you ask this, fear starts to reveal its hidden purpose. Sometimes fear appears because you are about to grow. Sometimes fear appears because an old identity is falling apart. Sometimes fear appears because life is pushing you toward a new version of yourself. In every case, fear appears at the doorway of transformation. It stands between the life you know and the life you are capable of living. The mistake is not feeling fear. The mistake is stopping your life because of fear. Stopping your dreams, stopping your voice, stopping your truth. Fear is not asking you to stop. Fear is asking you to look deeper. When fear rises, do not fight with it. Fighting increases tension. Fighting increases panic. Fighting strengthens the very thing you want to dissolve. Instead, breathe slower. Let your shoulders drop. Bring awareness to the sensations. Notice how fear has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Just watching this cycle teaches you that fear is not permanent. Fear is not a part of you. Fear is only a visitor. Visitors come and go. You remain. One day, as you become more familiar with fear, you will begin to feel something surprising. Fear has intelligence. It tries to protect you, but its method is outdated. It learned its lessons long ago, during times when you were vulnerable. But now you are stronger. Now you are aware. Now you have tools you didn't have before. Gentle awareness teaches fear that you are no longer the frightened child it once protected. Slowly fear begins to trust you. Yes, even fear needs to trust. Once fear sees that you can handle life with presence, it steps aside. It gives way. It creates space for courage. And courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the ability to act even while fear whispers. As courage grows, fear becomes softer. It becomes quieter. It stops blocking your path and starts accompanying you as a reminder of awareness. Every time you notice fear without judgment, you grow. Every time you move through fear with clarity, your consciousness expands. Fear is not the end of your journey. Fear is the beginning of awakening. With awareness, even fear becomes beautiful, because fear becomes a catalyst. Without fear, you would never learn trust. Without fear, you would never practice presence. Without fear, you would not recognize the strength inside you. Fear prepares your inner soil so courage can bloom, so clarity can rise, so freedom can enter. When you reach this point, something magical happens. Fear no longer arrives with a loud voice. It arrives like a whisper. It arrives like a suggestion, not a command. You can hear it, acknowledge it, thank it, and then walk past it. And as you walk past it, your steps become lighter. Your mind becomes clearer. Your heart becomes softer. You begin to realize that the moments you feared the most were the very moments that helped you grow the most. Fear was the doorway, not the wall. And now you walk through that doorway with gratitude instead of dread. You understand that without fear, you might never have found awareness. Without fear, you might never have found yourself. As you sit with this understanding, your heart begins to expand. New possibilities appear. New choices emerge. New paths open. Fear kept you in a small circle, but awareness breaks the walls. And you finally see how wide life truly is. This realization is freedom, not the dramatic freedom the world imagines, but a quiet, gentle freedom inside you. Freedom from panic, freedom from self-doubt, freedom from old beliefs, freedom from the cage of your own thoughts. Fear created the cage. Awareness opens the door and you walk out slowly, peacefully, fully awake. As your awareness deepens, you start noticing something subtle. Fear no longer arrives as an attack. It arrives as a movement, a small wave passing through you. Earlier, even a tiny wave felt like a storm. Now, even a large wave feels like gentle motion. This is not because fear became smaller, but because you became larger. Awareness expands your inner space until fear becomes just a small ripple in an infinite sky. When you look back, you realize how much of your life was shaped by fear. The opportunities you didn't take, the words you didn't say, the dreams you never touched. Fear had been living inside your decisions, silently influencing every step. But now that awareness is growing, fear begins to lose its authority. You start making choices from clarity, not from protection. Your steps become aligned with your truth, not with your past. In moments of deep clarity, you can even smile at fear because you finally see its innocence. Fear was never trying to destroy you. Fear was trying to keep you safe. But fear didn't understand that safety and growth rarely walk together. To grow, you need to step into the unknown. To awaken, you need to move beyond the familiar. Fear wanted to protect the life you already had. Awareness wants to reveal the life you are destined for. As this understanding settles inside you, fear loses its heaviness. You no longer carry it like a burden. You carry it like a reminder to stay present, a reminder to breathe, a reminder to return to your center. Fear becomes the call to awareness, and something else begins to change: your relationship with discomfort. Earlier, discomfort felt unbearable. You avoided it at any cost. But now discomfort becomes information. You begin to observe how certain situations tighten your chest, how certain words create tension, how certain thoughts create pressure. Instead of running, you watch. And in watching, discomfort transforms. What once felt like a threat becomes a doorway into deeper understanding. Awareness slowly teaches you that every uncomfortable emotion, fear, anxiety, insecurity, doubt, rises not to harm you but to awaken you. These feelings are not punishments, they are invitations. Without them, you would never look inward. Without them, you would never seek truth. Without them, you would never discover the depth within you. Over time, you begin to feel grateful for these emotions, not because they feel pleasant, but because they help you grow. Gratitude becomes your new response to fear, and gratitude dissolves fear faster than courage ever could. Courage fights fear. Gratitude transforms fear. As you continue to watch your inner world, you realize something profound. Fear and awareness cannot exist together in the same space. When awareness enters, fear begins to fade. When fear dominates, awareness disappears. This is why people become unconscious. When fear rises, they react without thinking, without seeing, without feeling. Fear collapses awareness. Awareness dissolves fear. Slowly, you begin to trust this truth. When fear rises, you close your eyes and breathe. You feel the sensations. You observe the mind. You watch the stories. You stay present. And in that presence, fear cannot survive for long. The wave rises and falls. The storm appears and passes. You remain untouched like a mountain observing the clouds. With each passing day, your confidence grows. Not the loud confidence of ego, but the silent confidence of someone who knows their inner strength. You stop searching for reassurance from others. You stop relying on approval. You stop depending on external validation. You begin to trust yourself deeply, completely, naturally. This self-trust becomes the turning point. When you trust yourself, fear loses its oxygen. Fear feeds on doubt. Fear feeds on uncertainty. Fear feeds on the belief that you cannot handle life. But now you know you can. You've seen your own strength. You've seen your own resilience. You've watched fear rise and fall. You've met your own depth. Awareness brings a new kind of courage, a quiet courage. Not dramatic, not loud, not aggressive. A courage that walks with softness. A courage that doesn't need to show itself. A courage made of presence, not pride. And this quiet courage becomes the foundation of your freedom. Freedom is not something you achieve someday. Freedom begins the moment you stop believing every fear that appears in your mind. Freedom begins the moment you choose awareness over panic. Freedom begins the moment you trust your own truth more than your imagined dangers. Slowly, step by step, you walk out of the cage built by fear. You realize that the door was never locked. You were simply afraid to push it. But now, with awareness, the door opens effortlessly. You step into a new inner space, spacious, calm, silent, alive. A space where fear may visit, but it no longer rules. A space where awareness leads and fear follows. A space where you finally feel at home with yourself. This is the beginning of inner freedom. This is the beginning of living beyond fear. This is the beginning of awakening. As you keep walking on the path of awareness, you begin to sense a deep shift inside yourself. Earlier, fear felt like something foreign, something invading you from the outside. Now you begin to see that fear arises from within you. From the same space where thoughts arise, where memories arise, where dreams arise. And once you see that fear comes from inside you, you realize something even more powerful. Anything that comes from within can be transformed from within. Nothing inside you is permanent. Everything moves. Everything changes. Everything evolves. Fear was never a solid wall. It was only a passing cloud. But because you never looked at it with clarity, you mistook the cloud for the sky. Now, with awareness, the sky becomes visible again, vast, open, untouched. There are moments when fear still appears suddenly, without warning. The old habits of the mind are slow to dissolve. But the difference now is that you don't panic. You don't judge yourself. You don't feel defeated. You simply breathe and watch the movement. Instead of drowning in fear, you float above it. Instead of collapsing into the old pattern, you remain conscious, and this consciousness becomes your strength. Slowly, you discover that fear loses its energy when you stop feeding it with your imagination. The mind loves to exaggerate. It creates entire stories based on a single thought. One small fear becomes 1,000 possible disasters. The mind is a storyteller. It wants drama. But awareness is silent. Awareness doesn't create stories. Awareness simply sees. And when you see without adding any imagination, fear becomes ordinary, a small sensation, a passing thought, a temporary vibration. In this clarity, you begin to move through life with a new kind of freedom. You stop avoiding situations that once frightened you. You stop running from opportunities that once felt overwhelming. You start meeting life more directly. You realize that fear was never about the situation. Fear was always about your interpretation of the situation. Change the interpretation and the fear dissolves. One day you will notice something beautiful. Fear no longer has the power to stop you. It may still appear, but it cannot control your choices. You choose based on awareness, not emotion. You act from clarity, not uncertainty. This is real power. The ability to move forward even when fear tries to pull you back. And something even deeper begins to unfold. You start seeing fear in others, not with judgment, but with compassion. You recognize the tightness in their voice. You recognize the hesitation in their decisions. You recognize the worry behind their eyes. And because you have faced your own fear honestly, you no longer respond with frustration. You respond with understanding. You become gentle with others because you have become gentle with yourself. This gentleness becomes a new kind of presence within you. People around you feel safer. They feel calmer. They feel understood. Without trying, you become a source of peace for others. Not because you teach them anything, but because your presence no longer carries anxiety. Awareness creates a silent field around you, and others feel it immediately. This is the quiet influence of a conscious person. As awareness deepens, the root of fear becomes clearer. The root of all fear is the same, the fear of losing control. The mind wants to control everything: outcomes, people, emotions, the future, even life itself. And because life cannot be controlled, the mind lives in constant fear. Awareness does not ask for control. Awareness asks for surrender. This surrender is not weakness. It is trust. Trust in existence. Trust in your own self. Trust in the unfolding of life. When surrender grows inside you, fear has nothing left to hold on to. Fear survives only in resistance. When resistance disappears, fear loses its ground. You start flowing with life instead of resisting it. You move with events instead of fighting them. You accept your inner movements instead of denying them. And in this acceptance, a deep relaxation enters your being. This relaxation is one of the highest forms of intelligence. A relaxed person sees clearly. A relaxed person responds wisely. A relaxed person lives deeply. Fear tightens your heart. Relaxation opens it. Fear paralyzes. Relaxation liberates. Fear blinds. Relaxation reveals. In your most relaxed moments, you will feel something extraordinary. There is a silence beneath your thoughts, a stillness beneath your emotions, a presence beneath your personality. This silent presence is who you truly are. Fear belongs to the mind. Awareness belongs to the being. When you rest in your being, fear cannot touch you. And in this silence, something even more miraculous occurs. You begin to sense that fear was never trying to destroy you. Fear was trying to wake you up. Fear was a signal that said, you are living too deep in your mind. Come back to yourself. Every fear you have ever felt was a reminder to return home to your breath, to your body, to your awareness. Now you see fear differently. You see it as a messenger, not a threat. You see it as a part of your journey, not an obstacle. You see it as a teacher that brought you closer to truth. And the moment this understanding becomes real, fear becomes light. Fear becomes manageable. Fear becomes almost friendly. You have walked far now. Fear no longer leads your life. Awareness does. As your awareness matures, you begin to understand that fear was never the real problem. The real problem was your relationship with fear. You fought it, you resisted it, you tried to hide from it, you tried to silence it, and all these efforts only strengthened its presence. But now, with growing clarity, you see that fear dissolves not through resistance, but through understanding. Fear softens the moment you stop treating it as an enemy. There are days when fear appears again. Suddenly, without warning, the old patterns of the mind try to return. The old thoughts whisper their familiar stories. The old tension rises in your chest. But now, instead of panicking, you breathe. You recognize the movement. You know this wave. You have seen it before. You have watched it rise and fall. This familiarity creates confidence. Fear no longer shocks you. It simply reminds you to return to awareness, and each time you return to awareness, you witness something profound. The fear that once felt overwhelming now feels manageable, almost predictable. It has lost its mystery. It has lost its weight. It has lost the power to consume you. You see it clearly for what it is, a momentary disturbance in the mind, not danger to your life. This clarity becomes your strength. The world around you may not understand your transformation. People may still react to their fears with panic, anger, avoidance, or confusion. You watch them with compassion because you recognize your past in their present. You know how fear twists perceptions, tightens the body, and blinds the heart. You know how fear makes people push away the very things that could heal them. You see this clearly now. And instead of judgment, you feel compassion. Compassion grows naturally in the soil of awareness. When you understand your own pain, you understand the pain of others. When you free yourself from your own fear, you want others to experience the same freedom. But you also understand something essential. No one can be forced into awareness. Awakening happens gently, slowly, when a person is ready. Just as you needed time, patience, and understanding, others will need their own journey, their own moments of clarity. Your presence alone becomes a silent invitation. When people sit with you, they feel calmer. When they speak to you, they feel lighter. When they share their struggles, they sense understanding. You don't need to offer solutions. You don't need to preach. Your silence speaks more loudly than words. Your awareness creates a field where others feel safe enough to face themselves. This is the true influence of a person who has gone beyond fear. They do not change others through force. They change others through presence. Fear creates distance. Awareness creates closeness. Fear shrinks your world. Awareness expands it. Fear closes your heart. Awareness opens it. Slowly, you begin to live with an open heart, not because life is always kind, but because you are no longer afraid of experiencing life fully. In this openness, a deep trust begins to grow. Trust in yourself, trust in life, trust in the intelligence that guides existence. This trust is not blind, it is not belief. It is not borrowed from scriptures or teachers. This trust comes from your own experience. You have seen that you can face fear. You have seen that fear dissolves in the light of awareness. You have seen that nothing inside you is too big to hold, too heavy to understand, too dark to illuminate. This experience becomes the roots of your trust. And when trust grows, life feels different. You stop forcing. You stop rushing. You stop trying to control everything. You allow events to unfold naturally, without panic, without resistance. You understand that not everything needs to go your way. Some things come into your life to teach you. Some things leave your life to free you. Some things challenge you to awaken you. Everything serves your growth in one way or another. With this understanding, even fear becomes a part of your path. You no longer wish to eliminate it completely. You welcome it as a reminder of your humanity, your sensitivity, your capacity to feel deeply. Fear becomes a signal that awareness is needed, and awareness becomes the bridge that leads you into freedom. One day, while sitting in silence, you will feel something extraordinary, a moment where fear is completely absent, not because you suppressed it, not because you resisted it, but because awareness has grown so strong, so natural, so effortless, that fear simply cannot exist in that space. This silence will feel like coming home after a long, tiring journey. This silence will feel like the life you were always meant to live. And even when fear returns later, you will not be shaken. You have tasted your own inner peace. You have touched the stillness beneath the mind. You know the way back. Fear may visit, but it cannot stay. You have become the master of your inner world. This mastery is not control. It is understanding. This peace is not escape. It is presence. This freedom is not rebellion. It is awareness. You are no longer living from fear. You are living from truth, and truth has no fear. As you continue walking on this inner path, a new realization slowly begins to unfold inside you. Fear was never something to be defeated, it was something to be understood. For most of your life, you tried to overpower fear, to silence it, to outrun it. Yet every time you pushed it away, it returned even stronger. But now you see the truth. Fear does not disappear through force, it dissolves through awareness. The more you sit with your fear, the more you feel its texture. You begin to sense the trembling beneath it, the longing beneath it, the innocence beneath it. You begin to see that fear is not aggressive by nature. Fear becomes aggressive only when you reject it. When you welcome fear with acceptance, it softens immediately. It stops fighting you because you have stopped fighting it. A wave cannot drown you if you are floating with it. You start to understand that fear is not your weakness. Fear is simply a sign that you are alive. Only a stone feels no fear. Only a dead heart remains untouched. Fear means you care. Fear means something matters to you. Fear means life still touches you. When you see fear in this way, the shame around it disappears. The resistance dissolves. You no longer ask, how do I get rid of fear? You ask, what is fear trying to show me today? And fear always shows you something important. Sometimes it shows you where you have been hurt. Sometimes it shows you where you have been conditioned. Sometimes it shows you where you have been avoiding your truth. Fear is a map. It points toward the parts of your life that need presence, love, and healing. Without fear, many wounds would remain hidden. Without fear, many truths would remain unseen. Awareness turns fear into a teacher. And once fear becomes a teacher, life becomes a classroom. Every experience becomes an opportunity to grow. Every emotion becomes a moment of discovery. Every challenge becomes a mirror. Slowly, you begin to understand that life has always been training you not to be fearless, but to be conscious. Consciousness changes your relationship with everything. What once felt overwhelming becomes manageable. What once felt threatening becomes familiar. What once felt confusing becomes clear. You start to experience a balance inside yourself that you never knew was possible. This balance does not come from controlling your emotions. It comes from allowing them. It comes from watching them. It comes from trusting the flow of your inner world. In this balance, you begin to sense a stillness beneath all your thoughts. This stillness is not created by effort. It is revealed when resistance ends. It is the stillness of being, the silence that exists before every thought and after every thought. This silence is not empty, it is full of presence, full of understanding, full of peace. When you rest in this silence, fear has no place to hold on, not because you force it out, but because silence has no corners where fear can hide. Silence is light, silence is clarity. Silence is your true nature. Fear cannot survive in the presence of your true nature. It can appear, but it cannot stay. A time comes when you no longer fear fear itself. Even if fear rises, you remain calm. You let it move through you like a breeze moves through open windows. You do not close yourself. You do not tighten. You do not contract. You let the breeze pass and the room remains peaceful. You become like that open room, welcoming, spacious, untouched. As this spaciousness grows inside you, your entire life begins to change. Decisions become easier, conversations become more honest, actions become more natural. You no longer overthink every step because you trust your awareness. You no longer exhaust yourself trying to predict the future because you trust your presence. You no longer cling to control because you trust the intelligence of life. And in this trust, you discover the deepest freedom, the freedom to feel without fear, the freedom to express without hesitation, the freedom to live without apology. Fear once kept you small, but now awareness opens you. It opens your breath, your heart, your mind, your entire being. You begin to taste the fullness of life not in rare moments, but in ordinary moments. The simple act of breathing becomes sacred. The simple act of sitting becomes peaceful. The simple act of being becomes enough. This is the freedom that comes after understanding fear, not the freedom from fear, but the freedom through fear. Not the escape from fear, but the transformation of fear. You walk lighter now. You breathe deeper now. You live truer now. Fear was the first door. Awareness was the key. And freedom is the path you walk now, step by step, breath by breath, moment by moment.